Watching KTN News, and this is Business Today. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. We're just about to be joined by Abi Agena, who is joining us from our City Center studio to discuss the pre-budget numbers. And just like you know, about 2 weeks ago or so, the National Treasurer, that is Henry Rotich, did release the budget estimates that were totaling about 2.3 trillion Kenya shillings. But he is going to be speaking to someone from PricewaterhouseCoopers, that is Benson Okundi, to break down the numbers on whether or not we actually did make the right decisions with those budget estimates. But, well, Abi, good afternoon. And what do you have for us this afternoon?
Well, many thanks there, Joy. Good to see you. It's been an eventful day in the business world. And we'll be talking about the pre-budget estimates that what are some of the key institutions likely to make of the numbers. And we are joined by Benson Okundi, who is a partner and the immediate former chairman of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Joining us this afternoon, Mr. Okundi, thank you for making time to be with us.
Yes.
Looking at this budget that is the 2016-2017 financial year,
yes.
2.26 trillion shillings.
Yeah.
This compared to what we saw in the other financial year, which was slightly lower. What do you make of this?
Yeah.
Is Kenya having a bigger appetite to spend?
Actually, it's more of a big appetite to grow economically. I mean, I think first of all, we need to register that Kenya grew by 5.6% economy in 2015. And the sectors that contributed to that growth, one was construction significantly, followed by financial services, retail, real estate, and then agriculture. So I think Kenya is looking at an economy that is on the growth path, and therefore that growth path must be reflected or must correspond to an ambitious budget that has been set at 2.2 trillion Kenya shillings.
Mm-hmm. Looking at this huge amount, it's actually the biggest in East Africa. I was just perusing through Uganda's budget, Tanzania, Rwanda, as well as South Sudan, which recently joined the EAC. Kenya seems to have a lot to accomplish. Perhaps if you could break it down for us, what are some of the key areas of priority that the government will be channeling this money to?
That's right. I think if you look at the priority areas in terms of budgetary allocation, infrastructure, ICT takes a significant proportion of the budget, just around 25% of the total allocation to the budget. Then there is the education, quite significant. Education in terms of the free primary education and also post-secondary education takes quite a significant chunk. Then there's the public administration, which has got the element of security, because you know, security is very important for investment climate to be right.
Tourism as well.
Tourism as well, yeah. So we are seeing a lot of focus in security sector, which is within the public administration, so that there could be advanced intelligence in terms of security issues to give us appropriate investment climate for both manufacturers and also for tourism as well. Agriculture has got about 4.3%. But it's an area that I think we could have done much more better, because for a sustainable economic development, I think we need to invest more in agriculture, not just in irrigation, but also in value addition, so that as we produce the goods, we can actually be able to take them to the higher values of the chain, store them, and then be able to export them. So I think security, significant allocation to the budget. Infrastructure, the standard gauge railway, and other projects around energy will continue to be an area of focus, because again, with appropriate infrastructure, we can expect development in manufacturing sector and also in other sectors as well.
Interesting. This is an area that I'd hoped to touch on, which I don't know why you went quiet on it.
Yes.
We're looking at an economy where we have high unemployment. Of course, this has an impact on also issues to do with crime levels.
Yes.
How is the spending around facilitating youth projects, even putting money into the various funding vehicles that the country currently has, the Youth Fund, Women Enterprise Development Fund, and the other funds that are there? Are we likely to see some huge allocation going that way?
Yeah, there is actually allocation towards what's called the social protection, which basically covers all the elements of youth, for example, women development fund, and all that. So I think the government still has maintained its focus on creating employment at the lower levels, at the grassroots level, by identifying those social areas and putting funds into it. So there is a good budget allocation towards that as well. But talking about unemployment, I think manufacturing sector.
That is it.
If we get it right.
The industries.
The industries.
Yeah.
Will then be able to address that aspect of unemployment. Two key sectors actually, agriculture and manufacturing. Currently, as we stand, out of seven out of 10 employable Kenyans are actually in the agriculture sector. And I think it's a sector that if we look at very carefully, invest in towards a more sustainable ways of doing agriculture, we should be able to address unemployment issues significantly. On manufacturing, again, production of goods within the country as well, I think so far that sector has suffered a paltry 11.8% growth over 10 years. That is just because the private-public sector relationship has not yielded so much results that actually we require. So I think if we get the investment climate right, macroeconomic stability, to get the investors to come into the country, and that sector grows, we can be able to address the issue of unemployment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okundi, the other area of concern from my end is the government is raising its expenditure.
Yes.
Of course, devolution has a part to play,
yes,
which also trickles down actually to the common man.
Yes.
But the bigger question is, we are having this ambitious budget,
yeah,
but we don't have the revenue to raise, because looking at the targets by the tax collector, the Kenya Revenue Authority, they have consistently been missing their collection targets.
Yes.
Last year's we actually missed the target by about 600 billion shillings, which saw the Kenya government seek other funding options overseas, perhaps also a factor that brought about the issue of the Eurobond.
Yes.
Looking at the budget deficit, how are we likely to fund this huge deficit that might arise from this upcoming budget?
I think it's fair to say that KRA, as much as it's been missing its target, I think there's been growth in revenue collection by KRA. Year in, I think KRA has registered growth in whatever they collect. The government would opt for internally generated funds through KRA revenue collection as the preferred option to fund its budget.
All right.
But that will not be sufficient. So we will not rule out the element of borrowing, both internally and from our foreign lenders as well. I think
from this, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
From the current estimates, 2.27. How much are we likely to fund from the domestic market?
I think from the KRA collection, maybe around 70% would be funded out of that.
That's about 1.3.
1.3 thereabout. I mean, I think that KRA collections has been just around that area.
All right.
The rest will have to borrow and also look at other mechanisms like grants to be able to bridge the gap.
But will this have an impact on the interest rates in the domestic market, where we'll see private sector being crowded out, sort of?
I think the government is keen to balance the mix of the debt between domestic and foreign, because we all know that we're also working towards a stable and a slightly affordable interest rate. So even if we borrow, the government will be keen to mix to ensure that it doesn't borrow too much from the local domestic market to crowd out the private sector. Yeah.
Many thanks. Good place to end the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking there to Benson Okundi, who is a partner and director at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and is also the immediate former chairman of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, ISPAC. And on that note, Joy, what's happening with the World Economic Forum next door in Kigali? Over to you.